The Huawei Mate 80 series is expected to be released as early as the end of October this year, or by late November at the latest. Unlike other Chinese phones, many components of the Mate 80 are independently developed and produced in-house, with its core components, the Kirin chip and HarmonyOS Next, set for insane upgrades. Looking at this trajectory, it's clear Huawei is setting its sights directly on Apple, and this year's Mate 80 series is poised to become the most formidable competitor to the iPhone 17. For years ago, the world witnessed an unprecedented technological death sentence. One nation, wielding the full might of its global empire, financial, diplomatic, legal, and the threat of military force, attempted to put a private company named Huawei to the gallows. This was not business competition. This was a calculated siege, a hunt designed to wipe a formidable competitor off the face of the earth. The politicians in Washington made no secret of their intent. Any entity with the potential to challenge America's technological supremacy had to be annihilated. They deployed their most brutal tools. The entity list acted as a tech guillotine, severing all of Huawei's connections to the global tech ecosystem in an instant. They leveraged dollar hegemony and long-arm jurisdiction to threaten any company in the world that used so much as a single American screw, forcing them to cease all cooperation with Huawei. They issued directives to their own allies, the Netherlands, Japan, South Korea, that were tantamount to demanding tribute from vassal states, compelling these sovereign nations to sacrifice their own economic interests to serve Washington's imperial ambitions. The very myth of free trade and globalization, once built and sold to the world by America itself, was torn to shreds overnight by its own creator. At the time, almost everyone believed Huawei's fate was sealed. Yet today, as we look upon the imminent arrival of the Huawei Mate 80, what we see is not a corpse, but an Avenger emerging from the flames, holding a sharpened blade. The very existence of the Mate 80 is the loudest possible slap in the face to American tech hegemony. Every trump card it reveals tells a story of oppression and resistance, a story that resonates deeply with all who live in the shadow of an empire. The first card is the chip named Kirin 9030, and it's not an ordinary processor. It is a monument to the indomitable will of human ingenuity against impossible odds. We have to understand that the pinnacle of the chip industry has long been tightly controlled by a Western technology alliance. That EUV lithography machine from the Dutch company ASML is the symbol of this alliance's power. And the United States is the gatekeeper who decides who gets to use it. By banning EUV, their calculus was crystal clear: to permanently lock China's chip technology in a bygone era. However, the emergence of the Kirin 9030 announces the complete bankruptcy of this plan. The N+3 process it uses is an engineering miracle, created without EUV by Chinese engineers who forged a new path with unimaginable wisdom and perseverance. It's like a team of master craftsmen, after having their most advanced tools confiscated, still managing to create a work of art that rivals any other, relying solely on their own hands and their profound understanding of their materials. I know there are still some peacetime thinkers, obsessed with benchmark scores, who will say its peak performance might still lag behind the latest Snapdragon chip. How naive that thinking is. Obsessing over benchmark comparisons is itself a mental inertia shaped by the bygone era of US-led globalization. But now, it is America that has single-handedly ended that era. In this new era of tech war, the most important metrics are no longer a trivial 5% performance difference, but survival, security, and sovereignty. The strategic value of the Kirin 9030 is immeasurable by any benchmark software. It is 100% free of American technology and 100% free from American control. This means that to this chip, Washington's ban is nothing more than a piece of waste paper. Every Kirin 9030 that is manufactured is a declaration that the technological noose has failed. Every Mate 80 sold with it inside is a direct humiliation to the bureaucrats sitting in Washington, D.C., who arrogantly dream of dominating the world's technological destiny. The second card is HarmonyOS 6. It's not just an operating system. It is a digital declaration of independence. For the past decade, we have lived in an age of digital colonialism. Apple's iOS and Google's Android have constructed an empire that appears open but is, in fact, closed. In this empire, your data is oil to be mined, your privacy is a commodity to be traded, and your freedom of choice is a carefully engineered illusion. Google, with a single government decree, could sever GMS services to Huawei, turning hundreds of millions of overseas phones into semi-brick devices overnight. This bloody lesson shows us what a dangerous, suicidal act it is to build a nation's information lifeline on top of another country's operating system. HarmonyOS was born to end this vassal status. Its concepts of being intent-driven and a super device are a complete subversion of the old, app-centric model of Apple and Android. It no longer treats the phone as a collection of isolated app islands, but as a smart hub that understands and serves you. Of course, some will inevitably attack HarmonyOS for its lacking app ecosystem. But that is precisely the point. Building an ecosystem takes time, but this process is, in itself, a war for freedom from servitude. I ask every single viewer, would you rather live in a gilded cage with millions of apps, but whose walls are lined with cameras and listening devices? Or would you rather personally help build a city of freedom that, while small at first, is open and truly our own? The emergence of HarmonyOS offers a new choice, a Noah's Ark, for all the countries and developers around the world who refuse to be held hostage by American digital hegemony. The third card is its full-body, hardcore innovation forged in fire. Every feature is both a scar carved by oppression and the armor that grew back in its place. Look at the seemingly minor design choices. The high-end model integrates a microactive cooling fan. Why? Because when your chip's computing power is restricted, you must use extreme hardware-software synergy to close the gap, and that requires a more powerful cooling system to support high-intensity AI computation. This fan is proof of Huawei's intelligence in bypassing the blockade. Then look at the satellite communication function. This technology, which Huawei was the first to implement in a consumer smartphone, was born from a deep-seated fear and determination. Even if ground communications are cut, even if we are isolated from the world, we must never lose contact. This was a survival instinct born from desperation, which has now become an industry-leading technical standard. Even the push for eSIM technology has profound strategic considerations behind it. It reduces the dependency on the physical SIM card slot, a component that relies on the global supply chain, and takes another seemingly small but crucial step towards complete, sovereign control. Together, these innovations form a silent narrative. The blockade did not kill Huawei. Instead, it forced the company to undergo a complete metamorphosis in every conceivable dimension. The greater the pressure, the stronger the resistance. Now let's turn our gaze to the final showdown of this war, Huawei Mate 80 versus Apple's iPhone. This is no longer a commercial competition between two companies. It is a symbolic duel between two models, two destinies. Apple, the symbol of the old empire, is showing unprecedented fatigue. Its innovation has dried up, forcing it to rely on brand inertia and constant price cuts to maintain its market share in China, a strategy that is, in itself, a sign of insecurity. 6. Meanwhile, Huawei, the rebel rising from the ashes, is charging forward, armed with core technology forged in blood and fire, and backed by the morale of hundreds of millions of consumers voting with their hard-earned money. The high price of the Huawei Mate 80 is no longer arrogance. It is confidence. It is the confidence to say, my value is defined by the suffering I have endured and the achievements I have made. Ultimately, the story of the Mate 80 is the most profound lesson for all who believe in hegemony. In an interconnected world, attempting to maintain dominance through isolation and suppression will only create a stronger, more resilient opponent and force the entire world to fracture. This tech Cold War is the worst gift Washington could have given the 21st century. And the Huawei Mate 80 is the response to that gift. It is not just a phone, it is the bugle call of a new era. It signals that the age of a single empire dictating the world's technological destiny is ending. A more diverse, more competitive, and inevitably more turbulent new global tech order is rising on the horizon.